Blog Talk Radio.
Hi everyone and welcome to Franchise Interviews. My name is Dr. Marty McDermott and I'm the president of Franchise Interviews. You know, over the last 8 years, Franchise Interviews weekly radio show has interviewed some amazing leaders in the world of franchising. And this October, Franchise Interviews is featuring our Great Women Leaders in Franchising Month. Today you're going to get to hear our interview with Jo Kirchner, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Primrose Schools. And that's coming right up on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we got a great show.
Franchise Interviews. For over 6 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And don't forget to listen to our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Franchise Interviews. My name is Dr. Marty McDermott. I'm a marketing professor for Kaplan University and the president of Franchise Interviews. You know, over the last 8 years, Franchise Interviews weekly radio show has interviewed some amazing leaders in the world of franchising. And this October, Franchise Interviews is featuring Great Women Leaders in Franchising Month. Today you're going to hear our interview with Jo Kirchner, the President and Chief Executive Officer of Primrose Schools. And Jo's lifelong mission is to deliver a nurturing environment and high-quality early learning foundation to help children become confident adults who love who they are and what they do. Jo joined Primrose in 1990 as a vice president of the company and became president and CEO in 1999. And under her leadership, Primrose has grown from 4 schools in Atlanta to several hundred schools nationwide today. You know, Jo was once asked to give advice to women on business and leadership, and she said something very profound. She said, "Strive for balance, not perfection, on the journey towards business excellence. Life is too short to reach something that's unattainable. Excellence in business and life is achieved by recognizing our imperfect human nature and focusing on an ongoing path of continual improvement, which enables you to reach higher each step of the way." And let's go right into our interview with Jo Kirchner. Primrose Schools revolutionized the concept of childcare. Hi, Jo. How you doing? Welcome to the show today.
Hi, Marty. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, Jo. Thank you for coming on the show. You know, I first learned about you back in 2011, and I've always wanted to have you on the show. I, of course, learned about you when you got that big award from Ernst & Young, but congratulations on that, by the way, Entrepreneur of the Year.
That's
was fantastic.
Honor.
I'm sure it was. It must have been amazing. And when I first learned about it, I said, we have to have you on the show, and here we are in 2014 already. So it is a privilege for me to be able to speak with you today. Well, I'd like to ask our guests, where are you calling from this morning, Jo?
A suburb of Atlanta, Georgia. It's called Ackworth, Georgia. That's where our corporate offices are.
Oh, fantastic. Maybe we could talk a little bit about the history of Primrose Schools, because I know they do have an interesting history, don't they?
They do, and in fact, the company was actually founded in 1982 by a woman and her husband who had moved here from Oak Park, Illinois, to the Atlanta area and couldn't find high-quality early childhood education for their children. Her mother owned a private preschool in that Oak Park community in Chicago, and so she took her mother's curriculum that had been established over many years and brought it to Atlanta as a half-day private preschool. And then in the mid-'80s, they began to really see a shift of professional working women calling and wanting their children in the program, but they needed care beyond the morning preschool program. And so that led them to really kind of revolutionize child care by wrapping the child care services around the early childhood education programming in the morning. So we became the first company to really launch educational child care.
It's such a common problem, isn't it? And I think, in studying your background, I think you had a similar problem too. I guess when your children were young. I mean, I think I recall you saying once that you wish that something like this was around when your kids were small, didn't you?
That's correct. In fact, I was one of those professional working women at the time. When my children were younger, we lived in Birmingham, Alabama, before we moved to Atlanta, and I and my husband both struggled to find quality early childhood education and care. You could find private preschools that were half day. You could find church preschools that offered character development, and you could find child care centers, but even the child care centers weren't real high quality. They were really designed initially more for the factory, the women that were working more in the blue collar sector,
right?
And so there was a desperate need on my own part when we moved to Atlanta, and I met the founders of this company and saw their preschools. I was just in awe because it was everything I had hoped I could have one day, and really I never found it personally for my own children.
And it's so important too, isn't it? Maybe we could talk about how important the first 5 years is for that child, isn't it, Jo?
Yes. So back then it was just anecdotal belief that early childhood was important, but over the last 5 to 7 years there's been significant research on the importance of brain development in the first 5 years. In fact, 90% of a child's brain is developed in the first 5 years of life, and the foundation, not just academically, but socially, emotionally, and physically, that they carry for the rest of their life is established in the first 5 years.
Yeah, it is. It's so important. My wife wanted me to mention to you that you would be very proud about this. My son lost his first tooth. He's 6 years old, and he lost his first tooth, and we gave him a book from the Tooth Fairy, so I thought you'd be happy to hear that.
I love that. I love that because, children today are so preoccupied with the interactive online learning, and really we know that literacy is the number one predictor of success in school and life, and pre-literacy skills come from ongoing reading on a daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a problem here now in this country, isn't it, Jo? I mean, where one time, the United States was thought of as being, the educational mecca, and we're not there today, are we? I think there's a lot of countries ahead of us.
No, in fact, as an industrialized nation, we really are falling behind, both in our literacy, reading, vocabulary, as well as our math, and particularly our math and science. And I think some of it is the need to go back to the basics and have a more blended approach in education, where we've had a pendulum that has swung over the years of very independent child-initiated learning and then very structured teacher kind of drill type of learning. And in the middle is a philosophy that we really established in early childhood education called balanced learning that enables a child to have the freedom for exploration, independent thinking, critical thinking skills, creativity, but also an environment where teachers are scaffolding them, helping them build one skill upon the next and taking them up a little bit and a little bit on an ongoing basis in terms of their learning skills. And then blending those important character traits like leadership and interactive teamwork and those type of things, decision-making. Those are all vital, important aspects of learning on top of the academic piece.
Yeah, it's so important. You mentioned the company started back in 1982. How has technology played a role in the business today? I guess technology has played some type of role and made some type of impact with Primrose, hasn't it?
It has. In fact, we have become more and more consistent in our capability to deliver high quality. We have currently 277 schools in 19 states across the country. I would tell you one of the greatest capabilities that technology has provided us is the ability to do online interactive learning and expand that for the teachers, and also to deliver the curriculum in a timely manner so that the teachers log on, they get all of the support materials, the education curriculum, as well as daily schedules and very comprehensive guidance as well as training so they can deliver consistently and really focus on each individual child. Then for the franchise owners, we also, besides them coming to our support center for training, technology has allowed us to provide them tools so we can help assess where the strengths and weaknesses are and help them close those gaps on an ongoing basis. Then we're also using technology to do national parent surveys, national teacher surveys, and that's allowing us to also benchmark what's working, what's not, where are the areas we can strengthen our delivery model. And so there's a continuous improvement process that technology has enabled us to not only implement but then benchmark the success and continually raise the bar on the quality delivery.
Well, that's fantastic, that ability to take market research, and that information becomes very powerful, doesn't it, for the franchisees and of course, the teachers as well, doesn't it?
That's right.
Fantastic. Are there numbers, Jo, on this industry? I mean, I know it's a very big industry, and we're talking about, this particular segment. Are there any hard numbers or?
Well, we know today that 50% of mothers return back to work within the first 6 months.
Yeah.
And the industry itself is about a $38 billion market niche. So there's a lot of opportunity within the market at all segments for growth because the country is, for the most part, this is a mom-and-pop industry. It's not a sophisticated, mature industry, more like the hotel industry or the food industry.
Yeah, very well said. What's been the most interesting thing that's happened to you since being with Primrose? And I know you've been with Primrose quite a long time, so it's kind of an unfair question, but does anything stand out over the years?
Well, for me, I have a passion for education and young children. And when I had been with the company, I joined the company as a consultant in 88 and then as a vice president in 1990, became the president in 1999. But one of my goals was to be accredited by the Southern Association of Schools and Colleges. It took me 7 years to get them to look at the early childhood segment, and this was long before the research that we have today. But Primrose did become the first accredited early childhood education organization in the country. Then I was asked to serve on a council of for-profit education companies within Advanced Ed, which the Southern Association of Schools and Colleges evolved to Advanced Ed. And then I was asked to serve on the board, the national board, as the first individual who's ever served for early childhood education. So that means that we're not just representing the high quality of Primrose, but that we're having an opportunity to influence early childhood education across the nation.
That's fantastic. And that's something that, of course, the franchisees or becoming a franchisee to Primrose, you become part of. What types of characteristics, then, do you look for in your franchisees, Jo?
So we look first and foremost for what is their motive. And most of them I will tell you that our franchise owners, about 70 to 80% of our franchise owners were actually parents who had children in the schools and then chose to change their careers to become franchise owners. The target franchise owner is also our target parent. They're upper middle class young professionals working for corporations, or they're pediatricians or doctors or CPAs. Maybe they want changes in their careers. They want more of a 5-day-a-week business. They want to put down roots in their community. And so the characteristic we're looking for is what's their motive. They're driven by passion for early childhood education and children. What's their character? Can we see an ongoing process in their careers that really reflects the same values we believe in? And then, of course, they have to have the assets to be able to invest to acquire a school. And then beyond that, do they have good people skills? Because this is a people business. We're serving parents, we're serving children, we're recruiting staff, we're engaged in the community. So those are the skill sets we look for.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, and one of the things that I've always liked about your business and the business model is the chance to be able to play such an important role in the child's life. The franchisee gets to do that, don't they?
They do. They do. They have significant influence. If you think about it, a parent leaves their child with us 10 to 12 hours a day, 5 days a week. So our school has a significant influence on that child. We know parents are the first and most important teachers, but partnering with them and working in unity, we really can have a significant influence on each and every child in our schools.
Yeah, it's so important. So what's the training like? I mean, once you decide, Jo, that, you like them, they like you, and what's the next step? I mean, do they come to headquarters for training?
So they come for an initial orientation for 2 days, so they really get deeply ingrained in the brand, the philosophies, the curriculum, and the general overview of our business. Then the next step is locating a site, and that's the greatest challenge for us because in most of the communities where we put our schools, they're other than in the last few years with a downturn, finding an acre to an acre and a half of land that's in the right traffic flow, in the right demographic location is a big challenge. So once we get the site, which usually is 6 to 8 months, then the franchise owner leaves their job and comes to training, and the building goes under construction. It takes about 6 months to build the building, and while the building is being built, they're doing interactive online learning. They're coming to our support center campus for a 2-week training. They're on-site in our school, on campus for training, and then they literally go to a mentor franchise school in the market where their school's going to be. So they get used to the state regulations and actually have worked in the business. Then we train the week before the school opens. We send in our staff and we train all the teachers, the management team, and then we're there when they launch the school for the grand opening.
That's fantastic. And it still must be a wonderful feeling for you, I imagine, when you get to see a new franchise open. Is the feeling still the same today?
It is. In fact, this past weekend I was in Pleasanton, California, and we were launching our very first Primrose School in California, which officially put us coast to coast. We have them in New Jersey now and California, so when I joined the company, I always believed one day this could be a national brand because I thought every single parent would want what we have if they could afford it. And now reaching that coast-to-coast presence, it is a huge milestone for us. But I have to say, the real joy was in the individual franchise owner whose dream was coming true.
That's fantastic. What is a typical day like for a Primrose School franchisee, Jo, if there is such a thing as a typical day?
Well, yes, with children it's probably not very typical, but the school opens at 6:30 in the morning and it closes at 6:30 at night. Okay. So they have a management team of professionals that manage the school both from an education perspective, operations perspective, marketing perspective, maintaining standards. Their role as the leader of the school is to recruit that team and to provide them the guidance and the motivation to recruit high-quality teachers and train them. So they're in and out of those schools every single day. They're also in their community building relationships with the Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary, state legislators, all the businesses in their communities, and building a reputation external that helps drive the recognition of our high-quality services so that we can get the parents in the door to tour the schools. And then they're looking at these surveys and they're benchmarking on a weekly and monthly basis. How is their school performing to their market, to their state, to their nation, and then continually setting plans for improvement. So they really are leaders of a business. They're a CEO of a business.
Absolutely. A question I was excited to ask you because, in studying your background, you have those entrepreneurial characteristics. What advice would you give to our listeners? We call them aspiring franchipreneurs, Jo. They know that they want to buy a franchise, but we find that most of them don't even know where to begin. So what advice would you give to them?
So I would assess what is your passion first, because any business, owning a business is a lot of hard work, and you have to get the personal satisfaction of doing something that you love, and then really understanding what are your strengths and applying both your passion and your strengths to a business model that you have really done your due diligence on to make sure you're a good fit. Because franchising has become more and more sophisticated in the last 20 years, and most franchises can provide a high-quality delivery model. Making sure that you're aligned with the right franchise and passionate about the service or product that they deliver is, to me, the most important aspect.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. So what's in the future then for Primrose Schools? I mean, if you can look 3 to 5 years down the road, Jo.
So one of the things that we accomplished about 2.5, 3 years ago was launching our first urban school. Most of our schools over the years have been in suburban communities across the country. And we launched our first urban school here in Atlanta 3 years ago. Now we have opened them in Denver, in Houston. We're getting ready to open in Boston. And so that's one avenue of growth that's different than where we've been before. We're also looking at potentially work site locations, like at universities, hospitals, corporations. And then while we have pushed back from any type of international franchising, I would see our ability to open the door to international probably about 3 to 5 years from now. Because if you think about it, even just American international schools in other countries across the world would really be beneficial for them to have an early childhood education program aligned. And we have so many English-speaking professionals living in countries around the world, and one of the most important aspects for them if they bring their family is where are their children going to be educated.
That's well said. What's the best way for our listeners, Jo, to get more information on becoming a franchisee in Primrose Schools? Any websites that you'd like them to go to?
Sure. If they would just go to www.primroseschools.com. That's the best way to get the information regarding the franchise. Or they can call the franchise company at 770-529-4100.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again, Jo, for coming on the show. It's a privilege for me to get to speak with you. And again, I've been following you for several years now, so for me to get to speak with you is a real honor. And I'd like to already invite you back next year as Primrose continues to grow.
Thank you, Marty. I appreciate it. It was a real pleasure to talk with you this morning.
Thank you, Jo. It was my pleasure as well. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Franchise Interviews. For over 6 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com, where you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And don't forget to listen to our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, we've been hosting franchise interviews now almost 6 years, and during that time, we've had some incredible quotes on the show. Today, you're going to get to hear from Carol Mercurio, and she talks about a subject that we talk frequently on the show, which is following the franchise system. She gives a lot of great other advice in addition to aspiring entrepreneurs, but I just thought her advice was fantastic. So here we go with Carol Mercurio, franchise consultant.
It is, because success means different things to different people.
Right.
You know, there are people that could be very happy making $40,000, $50,000 a year, and there's others that would just never tolerate that. So you have to pick the right opportunity that's going to meet not just your personal goals, but your income potential as well.
You have to like what you're doing, and most of the time that'll turn into making more money. So.
Oh, definitely. And, the truth is that franchising really isn't for everyone. It's, Michael Gerber, one of your guests who is one of my heroes, so to speak.
Right.
I love his book. I recommend his book all the time.
Yeah.
And as he says, there's a difference between an entrepreneur and what he calls a technician.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and we'll go into that if you want to move forward in
Sure,
slides.
absolutely. We'll go to the next slide, and that's slide 4, Carol says, that's all great, but...
Do you have what it takes? And that's really what this presentation will help people do. When I do this presentation live, it takes about 2 hours, and, there are people at the end of the presentation will run to the front door and can't get out fast enough. They're scared to death. Or you have those folks that just linger on because they really want to learn more and educate themselves to see if this is the right fit for them. But there's a lot to figure out, before you actually can pull the trigger and make that decision. And as you mentioned just previously, the due diligence is imperative. You have to do a good job of figuring that out. Is it the right connection personally, and are you connecting with a company that you feel is a comfortable marriage between the two of you?
Absolutely. Right.
And so that's what we're going to do is help determine if this is, in fact, the right path to explore. And then we can move on to motivation.
Okay.
And, for me, I think motivation is really, really a major component of this whole process.
I agree.
If you're not motivated to do this, don't do it. If somebody tells you should do it for a variety of different reasons, but it's not your own passion,
right,
you probably won't do well at it. And, there's two different types of motivation. There's positive motivation and there's negative motivation. So you have to think of it, is it an inspiration? Are you inspired to do this, or are you desperate to do this? There's a big difference here.
Absolutely.
Are you, running from something, or are you running towards something?
Right, right.
And,
for
me,
quickly,
I work
Carol.
with a lot of folks that have been downsized, and they're in transition in life, and I certainly can relate to it. But they may go to looking at a business because they can't find a job. Or maybe lesser positions are offered to them, less money, less title, or maybe their severance is about to end, and they need to make some decision quickly. Bad choice.
Right.
Not a good reason to buy a business.
It's like a last resort type of decision. So you can quickly determine part of your services is finding out that motivation level pretty early on.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I won't move forward in our consultation until that candidate can tell me what their reason is.
Right.
And it's not just because, I want control over my destiny. Who doesn't? Everybody does.
That's true.
They want to make more money. Who wouldn't?
Right, absolutely.
It has to go layers deeper than that, or as I look at it, having a burning desire. Or I'll add to that a little pain. If you can't relate to the pain, then there's no reward at the end.
Absolutely.
And going into business for yourself can be painful. With franchising, of course, it's a little bit easier because you have all the support. But it's still, you're starting a business from scratch.
That's
and you
what
have
Marty and
to
I
really
always
want
talk
it.
about. Right.
I'm sorry?
Right. We always talk about that, that there's no guarantee of success, but if you follow the system, work hard, look at the stats we just went over. I mean, the failure rate's so low. And then with getting the right
match,
consultation from someone like yourself, and,
right,
you should be okay.
Well, and it's true. And, the systems that are in place with franchising are the major reasons why people gravitate to franchising. But if you're not the personality to follow a system, and you're more of that entrepreneur, as Michael Gerber would say,
right,
the best way to describe it is you can't paint the golden arches green.
Right, right.
It just won't work.
Absolutely.
Either you follow the system and you'll be successful or not. But most importantly, there has to be a motivation. And everyone's motivation is different. The way I help people see things is if you look down the road, say the next 3-5 years from today, how do you see your life being different, if at all?
Right.
What do you want to accomplish? And for some people, it might be doing things that they've just missed doing, like having the freedom to play golf, or having the money to buy a boat and taking their family on it and being with their family and having that quality time that they just don't have in their current world.
That's interesting.
So you consider that positive motivation because that's the whole big picture of success in business, working hard, and then having all that personal stuff on the side.
Oh, yeah. What's the end result look like? What is it that you want to accomplish by being in business for yourself? I mean, what is your burning desire? Where is the pain now? I mean, if you look at your current situation today, I'll have people that I'm working with that are making, well over six-figure incomes, and they...
Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you again soon with another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising from Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.